What if Deku was the god of creation? Part 5. Now, where I left off, Aizawa had just given the class 2 days off to go train in the UA Sports Festival. Izuku and Momo had started dating just 3 weeks earlier from that. As the 2 days would pass, Izuku would walk to school with Momo just like he had started doing the 2 days earlier, as they would sit down with the rest of their classmates, as Aizawa would tell them what they will be doing and how they are going to go down, or they will just go over here, grab their PE uniforms, or rather their special UA Sports Festival uniforms, and they are going to hop on a bus in just about 30 minutes. And once they hop on the bus, it will take exactly 10 minutes to get to the Sports Festival Coliseum. From there, they will arrive in a special parking location to where they can easily walk to their accessible locker rooms for each gender and each class. And so 30 minutes would pass with them grabbing their their UA PE uniforms for the sports festival, as they would then hop onto this bus and would drive off towards the sports festival Coliseum. They would end up arriving with nothing happening, as they would then just arrive down in the locker rooms and would end up getting changed. From there, all the people that were changed would be put down into the Class 1A waiting room, to where they would be waiting for them to hear over the intercoms for them to all go out onto the field for their welcoming for the year 1 sports festival. So after around 25 minutes with everyone getting changed, they would then be announced to come on to the field. Izuku, along with his class, would do that, as they would be standing there waiting for something to happen, as Midnight would then tell for the Class 1A representative to come up onto the podium to give a speech to open the sports festival. And so Bakugo would step up and would say that he doesn't care who and how powerful someone is, he's going to win. He would say this very bluntly, as the entire crowd would just start to boo. It was a very stupid speech, as the entirety of all of the students competing against him would look at him in a rage. All of them besides Class 1A, who would just be looking at him as if he was an idiot, as Midnight would then shoo him off of the podium and would say, well, despite that, let's begin the sports festival. And before the sports festival begins, let's just finish this quick ad break.
Are you interested in buying yourself some My Hero Academia merch? Some amazing hoodies, shirts with your favorite character on it? From Izuku Midoriya to Shoto Todoroki, Bakugo Katsuki, and Himiko Toga. Go click the link in my description box now and get some awesome discounts from 17% up to 48% off. They offer you free shipping as well. So, what are you waiting for? Link in the description.
Now that the ad is over, we can get back into the UA Sports Festival. So, after that, Midnight would tell all of the classes that they will be doing the first event depending on what this wheel lands on. She would spin the wheel, as it would end up ticking on to a race. This race would then decide for the second event, which would go into the third and finally the fourth event, which will be a fighting tournament type thing, as all of the students would be pushed out into this cramped hallway, as the doors would then open with them hearing Present Mike yell go with his very, very loud cork, as the hallway would start to move. At least it looked like that, with just all of the students moving forward, trying to get out into the race. Izuku, along with Class 1A, would be out in front. They had the most training out of everybody there, of course, as President Mike would come over the intercoms of the stadium as the entire crowd would be watching over a giant screen with President Mike just saying, "And Class 1A is out in the lead of the race." It's quite interesting. I thought a couple of Class 1B students might be out there too, but nope, it just looks like Class 1A out there. As the class would end up arriving at their first obstacle, a giant robot. The 0-pointers that Izuku had faced during his mini test that he did. Izuku would easily dodge them, while some of the Class 1A would try to defeat them, which Izuku thought was kind of stupid of them, seeing as it would just slow them down. But most of the smart students would end up just getting around this, knowing that it would slow them down and would put them in a farther back place. Isuku would be running as he would see Mineta jump off towards Yaoyorozu, his girlfriend, as Isuku would jump back and kick Mineta farther back to ensure that he wouldn't jump on his girlfriend. With Izuku, this would cost Izuku first place, at least at the time, as Todoroki and Bakugo would take up first and second in the lead of the race, as they would then arrive at a minefield. Izuku would see them start to hop over these mines, with Bakugo just trying to fly over them, as Izuku would easily just create some type of shoes that would allow him to walk over them. He would also give a pair of these shoes to Momo to help her as well. This would land Izuku third place, with Momo in fourth place. Izuku would be sitting there waiting as they would then just be waiting for around 30 minutes before all of the students would end up finishing the race or be knocked out of the race, as the top 42 students would end up being placed into the second event, the cavalry battle. Now, if you're wondering who got first and second, Bakugo got first, while Todoroki got second. Now, from there, Midnight would tell them they all have 10 minutes to choose teams. Now, everyone would know that Bakugo has the 10 million point headband, and so Izuku, and along with everybody else, would not choose him. They didn't want to be on the most targeted team. They also knew that since Bakugo made that horrible speech, he was also going to be targeted just for that. So nobody wanted to be on his team. And so pretty much nobody was. The only person that joined his team was Kirishima. Izuku would put together a team of Izuku himself, Momo, Ida, and Uraraka. So they would then be placed where they wanted on the sort of arena type thing, as Midnight would then give them out each of their headbands and would then yell, "Go!" Now, Izuku would take the time before this to create a fake, just 1-point headband. And as soon as they said go, Izuku said they're going to target Bakugo. He is the lowest team. However, everyone was targeting Bakugo, so Izuku had to think fast. He thought of something that could possibly work. He created a slingshot and some type of sticky ball that he could use, as Izuku would aim it right at the wall behind Bakugo. He would fire this sticky thing as it would bounce off the wall and hit the back of the headband that Bakugo was wearing that had 10 million points on it. Now, the force that this ball was flying at would end up just bouncing right off of Bakugo's head, sticking to the headband, as it would then come right back at Izuku, as Izuku would catch it. Izuku would then place the 1 million point, or the 10 million point headband behind this 1 million point headband, and would spread out the sticky ball, turning it into some type of flat tape sort of thing, and would then stick it together, as everyone was just confused. Bakugo didn't have a headband anymore, and they didn't know who had the 10 million point headband. When in reality, it was Izuku who just showed the 1 point headband, so nobody decided to target him. as even the heroes were confused who had it. Midnight wasn't even sure when the round ended. Nobody went for Izuku's 1 point headband because it was useless to them. As the round would end, Midnight would say, who has the 10 million point headband? As Izuku and his team would raise their hands, as everyone would start laughing, thinking it was a joke. They had the 1 point headband after all. How could they have the 10 million point headband? While Izuku would then separate the headbands, revealing the 10 million point headband under the 1 point headband, as the entire just group that were there would just be in shock. Out of all the times they could have went to this team that was legit just standing still, not doing anything, it was them who had the 10 million point headband and caused them to be in first. Now the third event would end up being a just water break and lunch break, to where they could just be resting or training for the third or fourth and final event. Well, it kind of is the third, having the actual third event just being a water break. It didn't really count towards anything. No one was getting eliminated. Izuku would then be told that he was going to be in the first round against a kid named Shinso. So Izuku would take the time to rest a little bit, knowing that he doesn't want to underestimate anybody, as that is what could cause him to lose. Even though he is a god, he could still lose if he underestimates somebody too much. And so when he would walk out there, he would end up being stopped by Ojiro, who would tell him that Shinso has some sort of brainwashing quirk and to not answer any of the questions he gives Izuku. Izuku would thank Ojiro and would then walk out onto the field, or the arena type thing that they made, as Izuku would then talk to Shinso. So, I heard you have a, what's it called? A brainwashing quirk, huh? What did that monkey tell you? Izuku would obviously be kind of pissed off that he's calling one of his classmates a monkey, but he wouldn't answer. Izuku knows better than to answer somebody who he doesn't know the quirk to. Sure, he knows it's a brainwashing quirk, and Ojiro told him not to talk to him, and so he's still going to listen to his classmate, trusting his intelligence on this matter, knowing that Ojiro wouldn't try to sabotage Izuku's chances of winning. Nobody in Class 1A would sabotage each other's chances of winning. Maybe Todoroki or Bakugo. Izuku would then hear President Mike yell for the matches to begin, as Izuku would rush right at Shinso and would land a punch right on to Shinso's face, and Izuku would then jump back and throw an uppercut, which would hit Shinso's jaw, sending him back and out of bounds. The entirety of the crowd would just be speechless in shock. The round was over within 5 seconds. It was insane. All they saw were 2 quick punches and Shinso flying out of bounds, knocked out. Izuku had just done something that he had learned during his fighting days back when he was living on the streets. Some sort of boxing technique that he just decided to do that he hasn't done in a little while. So Izuku would be placed higher up into just the bracket, being placed up against Todoroki, who had just won his match against Suro right after Izuku's. Izuku would go up against Todoroki. As before then, Todoroki would stop him, saying that he is going to beat Izuku no matter what. Izuku would just laugh, telling Todoroki good luck, as they would both walk down onto the arena, Todoroki coming out one way, with Izuku coming out the other. They would then be standing there as President Mike would yell go, with Todoroki doing the same strategy he had done with Suro, sending a massive iceberg right at Izuku, which wouldn't work. Izuku would easily dodge this and would then just decide to summon a sort of molten sword, or he would create this sword, which it was quite weird. At least to describe it, it was a normal sword that could pretty much cut through ice cleanly, and any ice it did cut would pretty much melt very, very quickly. It was sort of a very hot sword. So when Todoroki would send an iceberg right at Izuku, Izuku could cut it right in half if he was lucky enough. Izuku wasn't the most skilled sword fighter, so Izuku knew he had to be careful. As Izuku would continue to gain just area on Todoroki, just gaining a couple steps towards him, which would be very vital for Todoroki to keep Izuku far away. He saw what Izuku did to Shinso and knew that if Izuku can land one hit on him, Todoroki or himself is pretty much done for. So this would continue happening. Izuku would continue to see Todoroki just have this frost grow on his eyesight, as Izuku would tell Todoroki that if he doesn't use his fire, he could possibly die from a frostbite. But Todoroki wouldn't listen, as Todoroki would continue using his ice, as Izuku would jump back, knowing that if Todoroki sent one more big wave of ice, he was going to knock himself out from the sheer cold that he had put himself through. And that exactly is what happened, as Todoroki would end up being knocked out from his own frostbite that he pretty much gave himself. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy What If Deku Was a God of Creation Part 5. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye!